Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Hi, Ruben.
Oh, hi. Hi, everyone. Sorry, starting a little bit late. It's been one of those days jumping from Zoom to Zoom, but I'm so excited. This is Ruben Barales with Wells Fargo, being here at the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce convention and opening up this panel discussion on economic and community development, specifically creating community capital. We've got a great lineup of panelists that we're going to talk to. And as many of you know, we also have this session translated in Espanol. So if you want to take advantage of that, the information is on the screen. So I'm really proud of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for doing the simultaneous translation today. But I'm going to get right to my panel, and we're going to talk about an issue related to community capital, which many people refer to as social capital. And it's one of those things that, small business, all businesses talk about access to capital, and financial capital is critical for the growth of any company. But community capital is even beyond, goes beyond dollars. It's about creating goodwill. It's about creating opportunity, and it's creating opportunities for small businesses and the community to be able to partner and get better outcomes. At Wells Fargo, we know a little bit about that. We've been through some tough issues, and we've had some great community partners, not the least of which is the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce that has been with us as we work through these issues, just as we are with the Chamber and other organizations that sometimes have issues that they deal with in terms of leadership and other things. And true partnerships help one another move forward and do a better job for each other and for the community. So with that said, I'm going to introduce our panelists who I want to thank so much for being with us, they were here early while I was running late for my other meeting. But I do want to welcome Carolina Martinez from Cameo, who is with us today, Mark Herbert from the Small Business Majority, who I'm glad is with us, and Hector Barreto from the Latino Coalition. Thank you all for being with us during this session. And I think what I'll do is I'll ask each of you to introduce yourselves. And Carolina, why don't we start with you and tell us a little bit about yourself as a person, and then a little bit about your organization.
Oh, thank you, Ruben, and thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to be part of this great panel. So I am the CEO of Cameo, and my experience actually be basically like a business consultant. I've been working for over 15 years with the small businesses back in my native Colombia and in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey, and now here in California. So for me, it's really my mission to support small businesses in any way we can. And I think Cameo has been a great opportunity for me to really support all the wonderful organizations that are doing business consulting, technical assistance, or are providing capital to help these businesses start and grow through this. So yeah, it's great to be here, and looking forward to the panel.
Great, thank you, Carolina, and you get the award for the best background today. So that's fantastic. Mark, why don't you introduce yourself as well and tell us about Small Business Majority?
Thank you, Ruben, and thank you all for the opportunity to join this panel. I appreciate the California Hispanic Chambers and Wells Fargo for hosting this really important discussion. So you mentioned in ourselves a little bit about ourselves and about our organization. So about myself, I'm a dad with 3 kids trying to do Zoom calls for school. So that part of my life is madness, which I'm sure many people could relate with at this moment. And on the professional side, so I'm with an organization called Small Business Majority. We are a national small business education and advocacy organization. We're C3. And fundamentally, we believe that entrepreneurs and small business owners are essential building blocks to healthy, sustainable, thriving local community. And so they deserve the tools that they need to be successful. So we do tons of educational workshops and programming, and that's really where a lot of our partnership and collaboration lives, and look forward to talking about that. And we also believe in an authentic voice of small business that exists in public policy that's just often underrepresented. And so we do a lot of polling of small business owners to get that perspective and engage stakeholders at the state and federal level. So really looking forward to this conversation and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Great. Well, you're doing the balance well, the Zoom with the kids and this here.
I don't know about well, but it's happening. It's happening.
Well, we haven't seen anybody pop in yet into the screen, so we're looking forward to that. And Hector, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself? There needs to be no introduction, but why don't you go ahead and do that?
Thank you, Ruben. It's great to be with you. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for Wells for sponsoring this. And of course, want to thank the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce for going forward with their convention, even though it's virtual. I'll be very brief. I am the chairman of the Latino Coalition. The Latino Coalition is an organization that's been around for 25 years. We're an advocacy group, a membership group. We do high profile events in Washington, D.C. and other parts of the country, California and other parts. We have a new procurement portal that we're very excited about, and want to thank Wells for all of their support and guidance and partnership on TLC Matchpoint. That's the background behind me. And in personal life, I'm a business owner as well, been in business, all my life, come from a family of serial entrepreneurs, and those businesses run the gamut from insurance and financial services to tequila. And I also have 3 kids at home, but there are 3 college kids at home. So hopefully nobody will pop up or decide to have a party while we're doing this webinar. But thanks for having me, Ruben.
Great to have you, Hector. Great to have all of you on the panel. And that's fine. We're all living in the Zoom world, so things happen. It's live and it's dynamic and it's ongoing. So we'll be here for a while. So I want to talk a little bit about community capital or social capital. What does it mean? And from my perspective, I've talked a little bit about how Wells Fargo has partnered with California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. And the statewide organization, which is fantastic. Julian and the team, they do a great job there, and local chambers as well. And then so many other organizations. Actually, Wells Fargo has the largest corporate foundation in the country. So, we've gotten to know a lot of nonprofits around the country. I find that those relationships are beneficial, especially when we have issues that are important to us. And when our partners have important issues. But can you, and I'll open up to any one of you, can you identify partnerships that have been important from your perspective that you think are helpful to small businesses or to chambers that you think are maybe models or things that you've experienced yourself, examples of partnerships that are positive?
I'll jump in, Ruben. This is Hector. Our name is Coalition, and from the very beginning, we understood that it was going to be critically important for us to work with other organizations. And of course, being in the community and serving in different roles, like you, Ruben, have gotten to meet many, many leaders, many, many other organizations. And, at the very simplest level, we understood very early on that, our community is diverse and we're not going to agree on every issue, on every position, on every election, but there's so much that we do agree on. And that's one of the areas where I think the Latino community is very rich. It's very rich in its relationships and its values and its history. And that's a great place to partner with others. Latino Coalition, as I said, has been around for 25 years. But the coalition is really more than 100 organizations around the United States. Those aren't all Hispanic organizations, and they're not all business organizations. We also care about education and healthcare and other policy issues that not only affect our small businesses, but affect our community. So this whole area around community capital, which again, Wells Fargo has it in its DNA from the very beginning, I think it's critically important. It's not only a big part of our past, but it's a big part of our future as well. And so I'm optimistic that if we continue doing the things that we're doing, we're going to come up with the solutions to a lot of our challenges and a lot of our problems.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's really important as we think about, what partnerships mean and what social capital is and how do we execute that and how do we think about that. I mean, I think about it in sort of very simple term. If I can pick up the phone and call 4 or 5 different heads of organizations, and they trust me to want to jump onto my initiative, or they want to call me to join, that social capital, right? That's the ability, really fundamentally, just to scale our impact, and build collaborative and identify resources and assets in our community, that then we can operationalize together. So yeah, I totally appreciate that, Hector. I mean, I think what we've seen, especially in the midst of this really crazy COVID economy, small businesses are stressed like never before. Your members in your communities, in your chambers, are really in it, and it's really challenging. I think now more than ever, how best can we identify those resources for our members? How can we make sure that we can understand the latest that's happening with PPP, the latest that's happening with EIDL? How can we help our folks navigate that? And how can we make sure that we are delivering to them the highest quality information? Really comes down to what sort of partnerships are you able to build? Because at the end of the day, our local chamber leaders aren't necessarily going to have a direct line into the White House to know exactly what's happening. But there are partners in the community that do have those direct lines in the White House. I mean, Hector, you worked in the administration, right? I mean, so just knowing that we have such great resources and assets, and folks being able to leverage their expertise. And I think the key there is knowing where to go. And that's why I think this conversation is really so important.
Yeah, I do agree. I feel like probably, as Hector mentioned at the beginning, is like Cameo started with the idea that together we were going to be able to do more than just by ourselves, right? So it's been 26 years after, and we've grown from 5 organizations to almost 300, only in the state of California, including all the Hispanic chambers of commerce now this year, which is really exciting for us. But we are really conscious that when we're talking about social capital, and when you're talking about how to move forward and generate impact, it's really important for us to be aware that you cannot do it on your own, that we are all here together to try to partner, to create synergies, to discuss potential partnerships. And I'm completely in agreement with Mark when he says, like, when you can't just pick up the phone and call somebody to say, hey, I'm thinking about this, what your thoughts are. Should we partner? Should we do it together? I think those kind of conversations are so important, even now more than ever. I mean, we are all talking about different systemic challenges we're seeing, and we talk about racism, discrimination, we talk about funding challenges, and we all together could really we can really move forward. So for us, it's really important to think how we could partner, and Cameo has been really interested in supporting our members in build those coalitions or those groups regionally, locally, statewide, or even nationwide, to really kind of bring those opportunities to discuss how could we work together and really have a bigger impact for the communities we serve.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm now going to put you all on the spot a little bit. And I'm not looking for you to name Wells Fargo at all, but I am curious, kind of, I know there are a number of corporate folks watching and folks interact. Can you name a company, a corporation that you think has done a good job, either with your organization or with others, in terms of partnering? And again, it's not a plug for Wells Fargo, maybe other companies that folks in corporate America kind of look towards.
This is Hector Rubin. You know, a few years ago, we did a dinner in DC, and what we wanted to do is recognize companies that had been with us for some time. And we were really surprised that we had about 15 companies that had been with us for over 10 years, year in, year out, supporting us, participating in our events, providing us guidance and support. And I think that's really important. And it runs the gamut. You know, our organization started like in California, but it's based in Washington, D.C. And, you know, we work with all kinds of industries. We work with the telecom industries. So we have great relationships with AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. And we work with the energy industry, Pacific Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, Sempra Energy. And we work with the banking industry. And I have to mention Wells Fargo, because Wells has just been incredible, not just with us, but over a long period of time, you remember, Ruben, that many years ago, I ran an organization called Latin Business Association, LBA. And I remember us working together in those years, and Wells was there. So, my father was a big believer in these mutually beneficial relationships. And as you know, he was one of the founders of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And he used to say, look, we really appreciate the companies that step up to the plate and that support our members and our mission, even before we probably deserve it. My father would say, we're going to remember those companies that were with us in the early years. When things are going well, there's a lot of people knocking on your door saying, okay, get rid of Wells Fargo, we'll give you more money. But we say, we're not interested in that because Wells was with us when you weren't with us. And so we appreciate that. So there's many, many companies. We have, dozens of companies that we've worked with for many years. They're on our website, by the way, the LatinoCoalition.com. But we can't do it without that partnership. And it's very important, more now than ever.
Great. Yeah, again, it's not a plug for Wells. I'm looking at other examples. I'm, love to learn and see who else is doing good work. Carolina?
Yeah, no, for us, is definitely this is a partnership building. So a lot of the funding we received for us is how could we not only receive funds, which are obviously great, we are grateful for it, but how could we really build that relationship in a win-win relationship? So we're trying to really develop ways to engage you with our members and engage to get our members to know who you are. The majority of our funders are bankers. So we do have a really strong relationship with banks, and we are expanding to connect with some foundations and corporations and private funders. But we are always looking at how we can align our efforts and how what we do really aligns with the goals of these corporations' philanthropy goals. We really want to make sure that makes sense. We do have a relationship obviously with Wells Fargo, we've worked several years, and most of our relationships have been for many, many years, and has been really focusing on all the CDFIs doing the small business loans and how we build the CDFI incubators and different programs that we are offering for them. But we also have another strong partnership with for example, Union Bank, talking about women-owned businesses. So something that we could really get all the women's business centers together to really strengthen the whole coalition and build the relationship based on the strengths of each of them, and also work together as a team. Or we've worked with other organizations in regional collaboratives like the one we have in LA, where we are connecting chambers, incubator, TA providers, lenders to really learn more about them, and even a small business majority is part of it too. So there is a lot of efforts out, and we are really looking to implement those kind of partnerships that could allow us to connect the organizations between each other and also connect them with the partners. For the banks, or especially for me, it's important to say, like, how could we connect with your business bankers, right? Not only with the CRA officers, but also how could we connect with the ones that are working with the small businesses and might need to refer them at some point to some of these nonprofit organizations serving, providing the technical assistance. So there is a lot of opportunities for us to really partner and develop strong partnerships that really have impact with the entrepreneurs.
And I think Carolina and Hector have covered it. I mean, I'll just say, I think our most effective partnerships come when, one, we get really explicit and honest about what success looks like for us, and how do we make sure that success for partners and success for our organization are connected in that way. And whether it's a funding partner, whether it's just a collaborative partner, we work with Cameo quite a bit, right? Like, what does success looks like, and really define that. And then the second piece is trying to remove a transactional framework as much as possible, and thinking about it much more in terms of what's the long-term strategic vision here. We are all tackling pieces of sort of similar problems when it comes to economic opportunity, economic mobility, successful community development, and economic development. And a lot of the times we are working towards the same goals, but maybe just in different ways. And when you get really clear about success, when you sort of try to remove the transactional piece and think long-term, I think you really free up some space to really be able to identify what are the community assets that can be plugged in as we continue to all work towards a shared goal. So for us, just to throw some names out there, we've worked closely with a lot of foundations, but most recently in a really cool partnership with eBay as they're thinking about how are they helping businesses in the retail space pivot their businesses to do more online offerings. How do you get your business online? There's a whole cohort that's going right now where they're getting specialized training. I'm happy to send that in the follow-up to this session so that folks can get it out to their networks. It's free, folks can sign up, but just thinking about that, right? What does success look like, and how do you align that in a way that makes sense?
That's good. I think it's what we're talking about building capital is trying to move away from the transactional situations. It's difficult though because nonprofits need dollars. Many corporations have those dollars, and so there is some transaction, but I think that transactions really the ones that seem to be most successful are built upon relationships, where you're able to, as you say, quite frankly, talk about the goals you want to accomplish and reach. So let me ask you this, from your perspective, outside of your own organizations, are there nonprofit organizations or efforts that you've seen, coalitions, that you think have done a good job of helping to build capital, community capital in the country? Any experiences with other groups that you're a part of or that you've seen or that you've admired from your perspective?
Ruben, the sector, for good or bad, I was doing an inventory of how many boards that I'm serving on right now, and I think I'm up to 19, and those are the non-paying boards. So I think you get to see these different models, and you get to see what works. And I'm on groups like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the board of directors of U.S. Chamber. They have a small business council. They have been really, really active, probably more active than I've ever seen them before, simply out of necessity. The business model changed for everybody, and you've got to find a way to be relevant. So they do all kinds of things. They're doing, regular calls and all kinds of webinars and partnerships with big companies like MetLife and Inc. magazine, and they're advocating on the Hill, and they're paying more attention than ever before on their small business groups and coalitions. Now, obviously, the U.S. Chamber has been around for 100 years, and they have significant resources that they can deploy. Not everybody can do that, but I'm very impressed by how they have kind of pivoted, and they got out of their old model and are doing much more things. Obviously, we have great Hispanic chambers of commerce out there. There's all kinds of coalitions based on a particular issue. For example, I'm very involved with organizations like AltaMed here in Southern California. We're part of national coalitions that advocate for healthcare for all people, but especially for Hispanics in California. There's educational coalitions. So, look, I don't think there's any one way to do it right and to be successful. You have to find something that kind of fits for you and your memberships and has the right kind of a feeling and chemistry. But there are lots of examples out there, and there's more help and information out there now than I've ever seen before. And hopefully we're all taking advantage of it.
I think a really cool coalition that sort of turned into an effort to support small business has been this effort called the California Small Enterprise Task Force. Cameo's been a part of it. We're a part of it. Really what it's trying to do is build a $100+ million loan fund for small businesses to use CDFIs as a way to get dollars out the door. And it really started as a bunch of folks coming together thinking, frankly, there are some private equity folks in San Francisco and some lawyers, and they said, businesses are going to get creamed with COVID. How do we help? I don't know small business, but I know how to construct a fund. Maybe there's something there. And then they just started leveraging their personal networks for investors. Carolina and I got pulled in because we're in the small business community and just sort of having these conversations. What can we build and how can this work? And I thought it was a perfect, and we are now really close to hopefully launching this fund in the coming weeks. The iBank and the state of California is stepping in to support it. So it's a really fantastic effort to show what can happen when you have folks really focusing on a vision and a mission, just leveraging personal networks, again, to that social capital of who in my Rolodex do I trust that I can call, that wants to step in here, not make it transactional, but wants to accomplish this goal. And if you're on that list, that means that you can engage. And then down the road, if you're playing the long game, right, hopefully funding comes as a side value add to the work. But at the end of the day, it's really being able to identify those questions. So the California Rebuilding Fund, which should be launching soon, I think is a perfect example of what's possible when folks get together and think about how to meet the needs they see.
That's a great example. Thanks, Mark. Great. So Carolina?
Yeah, no, just echo what Mark said. I think that's a really good example of something that started recently and has really grown significantly in very few months. And that also really speaks to the moment where we are, I think. We've been talking internally at Cameo and how we are seeing more and more collaboration happening in the last few years, but this year particularly has been all over because people realize is that especially when you're seeing or you're living something like a pandemic, like or all the economic crisis, social crisis that we have, like we really need to kind of come together. So I think examples like the California Rebuilding Fund or some collaboratives specifically, I'm seeing one actually here in the Bay Area growing specifically for Latina women owners. Or just for small businesses suffering in Inland Empire on Los Angeles. So we are seeing more and more collaboratives, and I think it's important. Like from Cameo's perspective, we're just trying to really foster and support those collaboratives with the infrastructure, but really it's important that they are coming together on their own terms and just leading these efforts to create synergies and really to be successful together.
Great. So we've talked about kind of private sector, nonprofit. So in the public sector, local, state, national, any examples or any agencies or entities that you think kind of have stood out in the area of kind of small business and helping to build social capital or help small businesses? Any examples that come to mind?
These are public sector kinds of organizations, Ruben?
Yeah,
or
any public sector efforts that you think are noteworthy.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, the issues can change a little bit depending on where you're located. You know, lots of issues in California, and so a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of groups that get involved in that. Again, chambers at all levels, both local, state, etc. There are organizations that are constantly looking at what the implications are for the small business community. I know that we know a lot of these names, you know, organizations like NFIB, like the Job Creators, etc. They take maybe a little bit of different, you know, part of the real estate, for lack of a better description. One of the things that I'm very mindful of, and I love that old saying, Ruben, is there are no permanent adversaries, there's only permanent interest. And small businesses have permanent interest. And so we need to be talking to everybody. You know, elections come and go, leadership changes. And by the way, one thing that we've learned about the pandemic is that the only thing that you're absolutely sure of is that things will be different tomorrow. They will change tomorrow. People that you're talking with today may not be here tomorrow. Their positions may be changed, or they could be downsized, etc. So, you know, business is about relationships. I mean, that's just a fundamental part of being in business. And the better you are at networking and building relationships for the long term, the better you are to advocate for those permanent interests that we all have.
Just to add to what, I mean, Hector's absolutely right. And especially at this moment, in the public discourse, small businesses are central. And oftentimes small businesses are, politicians like to give lip service to small businesses. Those small businesses are central to decisions. And we all know that's not true. But in this moment, there's actually more momentum behind the permanent interest that Hector's talking about than ever before. And I think it's incumbent upon us to seize that moment and say, this is how you help our community at this moment. This is how you help our small businesses. These are the policy solutions. I think there are a lot of ways to do that. And Ruben, just to on your question on like where have we seen public sector social engagement? One of the things that I found really interesting is with the CARES Act, that was that big federal stimulus package that was passed, hundreds of millions of dollars went to cities to support small businesses. And so you have really interesting pilot models all around the state and all around the countries of cities putting together grant programs, maybe some smaller lending programs, and working with chambers and business groups locally and regionally to try to make sure those dollars are actually reaching the small business owners that need it. Right. And so there's a scenario where you have the city say, we have to get dollars into the hands of business owners that need it most. And if you are part of the business community that's regularly engaging with your elected officials, not in a transactional way, but in that long-term strategic influence way, you'll be on that list to call. And they'll say, well, yeah, we got to call, so-and-so who's the head of the chamber, because he's going to know how we should get this money out. So it's thinking about how do we play the long game as business community advocates to do what Hector said, to take this moment, to make sure these permanent interests are part of the fabric of recovery in a way that maybe they wouldn't be before. And I think it starts locally, and it starts with these relationships that you all have in your local communities as chamber leaders.
Yeah, I obviously completely in agreement with both of you. I would just only add one thing. I think from the public arena, we've seen also through all these funding and all these everything that we've lived through this year, we've seen a lot of interest from some of the government's office and some of the cities and counties reaching out to business associations or business organizations to really learn more about what the businesses are really living and what the situation is. And I think that is a great opportunity for us to really bring to light what we are seeing with our small businesses. I know Julian and Mark and I are part of different groups that are talking with Gobis, that we're talking with iBank, that we're talking with the legislature to permanently just bring to light those challenges, to kind of keep them updated, and also to learn from other organizations. So you are building some of that social capital as you are sharing what you're seeing, what you're hearing, but also learning from other groups and organizations that are in other aspects and other like little pieces of the pie, right? So we're really connecting all those pieces right now. And I think it's important to take opportunity of that, and just the same way that we bring that information to them, just present that information back to all our membership. And it's so important for all the chambers to be also kind of engaged on what's happening on that area.
Great points. So we've all seen, I'm sure you have seen up close, so many small business people, their dreams just seem to be kind of slipping through their fingers in, with what's happening with the COVID, the economic downturn. It's very sad to see that. So they're searching for capital, actual capital, and maybe not even realizing it, but needing social capital too, kind of a network, a structure, support. So what's your advice? I think most of the people listening here, many are small business people, many are part of organizations that try to help small businesses. So what's your advice for small business folks in California? Where can they turn to for access to capital, for access to a network of folks that might understand what they're going through, might be able to offer some support?
Yeah, Ruben, what we've learned through the pandemic and this downturn in the economy is how interconnected we really are and how dependent we really are on each other. And it's kind of like, when things are going, good, you're just not paying attention to anything else other than what's in front of you. You're kind of looking down. But when things are challenging and unknown and scary, you're kind of looking up and around and like, who's going to help me, so to speak. And, there can be a lot of analysis paralysis. There can be so much information out there and so many offers that you kind of just, melt down almost. But, I think it's incumbent on every small business to help themselves by learning what's out there. There's a lot of centers of influence. I would say to you that, chambers of commerce and organizations like ours, to put in a selfish plug, are more necessary than ever, because we've got our finger on the pulse of who's doing what announcements are being made, directions to stay away from, etc. And so I would definitely, kind of double down on your engagement. One of the things I heard a while back, and I think it's really important, is that this is the last time that you ought to be not marketing. In other words, double your marketing, because if the objective is to survive what we're all going through, this new abnormal, then once you get to the other side, you've already planted seeds with other people that you can do business with. Lastly, there's tremendous resources at the federal level. And a lot of people have heard of SBA, but they don't know all the programs that they have. And they have so many programs that are technical assistance programs that can help you kind of pivot your business in a different way, or give you advice on how to kind of navigate the minefield and lower cost. At the end of the day, small businesses need the same thing that big businesses need. They need more business. And if you can help them get more business, they can take care of a lot of the other problems themselves. And so that's really the question I think that every business has to ask themselves is, where can I get more business? And if you don't know, you need to ask. You need to ask for help from some of these resource partners that are out there wanting to help you.
Yeah, I'll just put first a straight plug in for the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. Amazing distribution of resources throughout the state. I know we work closely with Julian and the chamber and his team to do webinars in English and in Spanish on access to capital, on healthcare, on you name it, whole host of different issues, and especially around PPP and EIDL. Hector, to your point about the federal resources, right? Tons of federal cash. We may see additional federal cash become available before or after the election. Seems to change by a minute in terms of what's happening in DC. But there may be another round of that comes out, and you'll want to make sure that you're plugged into the latest information there. So definitely with the Hispanic Chambers of Commerce, and they'll have some great information. And the Hispanic Chambers of Commerce are a small business development center satellite. So again, as Hector mentioned, the SBDCs, that's one-on-one free assistant for your members as a small business owner. You can go and get that support to grow. And then the last plug, again, with the California Hispanic Chambers, we're going to be doing a webinar with the California Hispanic Chambers about this new California Rebuilding Fund in the next couple of weeks. And so if you're on this email list, you'll get an invite, and encourage you to check it out. And that's capital at a very affordable rate for business owners around the state. So definitely stay plugged into the chambers and make sure that you're identifying those key information brokers that you can rely on when things move quickly.
Yeah, I'll add. I think it's very interesting when you talk about connections. But Cameo, we're like behind the scenes, right? We are providing the support to the business assistance providers, the lenders, for them to really being able to focus on the small businesses, right? And one of the documents we actually generated a couple years ago was the local entrepreneurial ecosystem, where we were really discussing what does a small business need to really be successful. And we identified 5 C's, just similar to lenders. So we were talking about coaching, we were talking about capital, we were talking about climate, about how easy it was for them to start their business. We were talking about culture, if it was an area where it was nurturing the creation of small businesses. And the 5th C was connections. And for us, it's been really interesting to see that a lot of the, especially Latino communities or maybe other minority groups, is we have to be working harder to create those connections and those relationships to really kind of grow their businesses. And when we are talking about that, and we are looking at our network of service providers, the majority of them, actually all of them, are for free. You start thinking about like, how could we really leverage that network to support that connection building for the small businesses? And I think it's so important for us to really start discussing more and having that conversation about how could we really market or spread more the word about all these resource partners available for the small businesses to talk to them in the right language. So we have a lot of the bilingual consultants, bicultural, the people that really can connect with the small businesses and help them find the right resources, because we don't want them just to start, we want them to grow. So it is a whole path that they need to follow to really make it, right? That dream that they have of really growing their business, being able to generate jobs, to be self-sufficient, to start feeling accomplished. So those relationships are so important. And part of the conversations we've had with our network is how do we create this network as a way for them to build those relationships, to support and foster relations and connections. And that is obviously a long-term initiative, but we keep talking. And I would really encourage all the small businesses to look into all these available service providers and all these resources for them to really ask them about, hey, I want to grow. Where should I go? Who should I contact? Do I need a bigger loan? Do I need a better contact? Do I need to connect with another organization? Do I need a mentor? Sometimes it's that. So I would definitely think that and encourage everybody to really have those conversations and start looking at that. And I'm shamelessly gonna plug here, obviously, our website too. Like there is so many service providers by region in cameonetwork.org. That's our website. You can definitely look for them. And we would be happy to also connect you. And I know Small Business Majority also has Venturize for you to connect with the right resources. So it is really just find the right partner to help you grow where you feel comfortable. And even the chambers itself can just partner with them and make sure, like, I trust this organization. I feel comfortable sending you there for them to guide you through the process. So those connections is very important for us to really think how we can grow and help the businesses, especially at this moment. I mean, there is a lot of people coming together. There are marketplaces opening up for them to look other resources. We are working with our members to really provide those online tools to help the business offer their products and being able to market themselves online when they haven't been used to, and getting all that. So there is opportunities, and right now is the moment to look for that support.
It just as note, right? Perfect example of social capital. Carolina and I work together quite a bit, and look, she's plugging my website, right?
I know.
I have to plug my own website. Perfect example, just like we work together on so many things. We're happy making sure we're sharing the vision of where we're trying to go. So thank you, Carolina, for the plug to Venturize.
Community capital right there. We're seeing an example of it. I do want to take this opportunity to mention, I think you all are familiar with it. Hopefully all of our viewers are. But Wells Fargo just opened a round of funding for our Open for Business Fund, a $50 million fund to help nonprofits who provide technical assistance for small businesses. So yeah, I'm sure you all are aware of it. Hopefully folks that are a part of the nonprofits that provide services to small businesses are aware of it, but we're looking, we're really focused more on minority-owned small businesses. But that application process ends on the 23rd of this month. So if you're interested, get a hold of someone at Wells Fargo, Open for Business Fund, Wells Fargo, and hopefully we'll be able to get more resources into California to help California small businesses grow, as you say, Carolina, and prosper.
Can I say real quick? I know, Ruben, you didn't want us to plug Wells Fargo, and I bit my tongue.
Wait, no, please.
But in all seriousness, like how much we appreciate, because this is the second round of funding that Wells Fargo has distributed to the small business community. And the first was for CDFIs, to make sure that they have the liquidity that they need to get loans to the businesses that need it most. And then to identify and understand how important it is for the technical assistance, the coaching, the one-on-one support is to that entire effort, to make that available too. And then using the funds that came in through PPP to be able to put back out into the community is just an incredible way to really make that commitment, saying you have a stake in it when it comes to small businesses. So, thinking about corporations who are actually walking the walk, we appreciate what you guys are doing for small businesses, not just in California, but across the country.
I appreciate that, but yeah, very proud to be part of Wells Fargo, helping small businesses through organizations that actually can help, which are organizations like yours and the ones you work with. So let me ask you all, from your personally, I mean, you're all part of very, very innovative, successful organizations that help small businesses. how do you create community capital? How do you, as a professional, as a leader of your organizations, how do you do those kinds of things? I mean, what advice would you give to others who are looking to do the same? You all been very successful at that. So Hector, I'll start with you.
Sure. I would, very simply say, be the partner, be the ideal partner that you always wanted first. It's that old saying is if you want a good friend, be a good friend first. And then, be very clear about what your mission is. I think Mark alluded to this before, what your goals are, to try to find alignment with a potential partner. You won't be able to be partners with everybody, nor should you, but it's a good thing for a lot of people to know what you're all about. And, it's kind of like these guiding principles. And at Latino Coalition, we've always tried to focus in on leadership, the leadership that we provide to our community and to the broader society. Integrity, in other words, do the things that you say that you're going to do. Believe me, that goes a lot farther than anything else does. We're obviously very committed to a community, and that could be primarily a community of entrepreneurs, but also a greater Latino community. And finally, partnership. And partnership, for me means really understanding what the win is on the other side. I think for some corporate representatives like Ruben, oftentimes they're a part of a one-way conversation. And that one-way conversation is what they want Wells to do for them. But not too much is talked about ways that they can help Wells. And I understand it's not, a lot of the commitment that Wells does, especially through their foundation, is not transactional. However, Wells can work with anybody, and there's a lot of groups out there, and they have a limited amount of resources like any other corporation. They're going to choose those organizations that they've had a good track record with, and that they really believe that they're helping, and also the organizations providing value for them. So I know that's a long answer, but that's basically how we go about creating win-win partnerships for the long term.
Carolina, do you want to go?
I was going in the same order always.
Let's mix it up.
No,
because Ruben lost connection. So
we lost Robin, so we'll just mix it up here.
We're off script. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, no, definitely, I agree. I think part of this is building relations and building trust. I think it's very important to start building those relationships, even if you don't see a clear partnership, because you don't want a friend just when you need it, right? So you're really kind of working with them and have a clear idea of what your mission is. And just trying to build that even personal relationship beforehand is very useful. I would say, and I would share, I actually moved from Pennsylvania to California 3 years ago, and I literally knew only one person in the whole state. And that person was the one that connected me with this position. And I'm very grateful for that. And also that just started like a whole challenge for me to build my social capital, because nobody knew who I was. So here, somebody that nobody knew is now leading Cameo that has a 25-year record. So, so it is very important just to start getting out and just introducing yourself to people, and people like to know you. It's not only after funds, or it's not only after a specific needs. It's like really getting the relationship and start sharing what your goals are, what your mission is. Part of, I think, in those partnerships, part of the challenges has been always like, it's after we're not building like partnerships based on what our mission is. And we should, because we're really working on such a nice mission, and we're really working on creating so much impact and so needed at this particular moment, that we need to start sharing, like, how do we see the future going as an organization, as a community, and as a community. So sharing those, just going to start finding more synergies that are going to end up most likely building partnerships in the short, mid, or long term. So really having that open door and those open conversations and following up to just say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is, what do you think about it? I think I mentioned that. It's just kind of even having those open conversations is very important as you're building those partnerships and building that social capital. So yeah, we're glad to see you again, Ruben.
Yeah, glad to be back with you. Technical difficulty, but we've overcome it with using our phone. Go ahead, Mark.
We took over.
That's right. We just went off script and did our own thing.
Excellent.
No,
Yeah.
so you know, I'm really looking forward to getting into the questions here. But just very explicitly and practically, you know, how do you think about building social capital? So I'm going to steal from both Hector and Carolina because they're right. So you know, one is really define success for you and your organization, whether it's small business or whether that's a chamber. And the best way to do that is literally pull out your mission statement and your vision statement and make sure they make sense and make sure they're exactly what they should be. That's your and then what does success look like if those are your mission state, if that's your mission state and that's your vision state. So that's one. Two is then do a quick scan in your community. Whose success might be aligned here? Where is there alignment potentially of success with folks in my community? And then start having conversations. And this is and to Carolina's point, you got to be open to having these conversations. So in my work, I have like I call it my flyer bucket. It's like it's 5% or less of my time that I spend every month on what I call flyer conversations, right? They could be totally out of the blue and weird. And the person's like, you have nothing to do with what I do. And like, I don't understand why this is happening, but I will say yes, as long as it's not more than 5% of my time. I will say yes, because you never know in the million, well, that was nice, good to meet, yeah, let's move on. Every time you have one of those, every once in a while, you might find something interesting and you might find something that actually can create really unique value. The California Rebuilding Fund and my work in that came on a flyer conversation. It was it was just a random conversation with someone that I kind of knew. And then all of a sudden things started snowballing and moving forward. So, and be intentional about it. You know, I know we have to raise money. I know we have to execute programs. I know there are so many things that you have to do to lead your organization that have to get done. But just to Carolina's point, carve out that time that you have, that you spend on these conversations, whether they're proactively things you're doing or whether you're saying yes to conversations you've never had. You have to manage that time and you have to protect that time, but you have to have them because good leaders always know what's going on, as well as are able to think about how do I operationalize interesting or unique ideas.
Great.
So that'd be my recommendation.
Fantastic. Thank you. Those are all great. So again, I had technical difficulty, but in my undisclosed location here where the Wi-Fi is a little iffy, but thank you all for that. I know we have questions. I am having a hard time getting to them on my phone, and I'm afraid if I touch a button, I'm going to lose connection again. So can any of you read any of those questions that are in the Q&A? Were any of you able to see that? Here we go from Angel. How do we harness social capital to build supportive versus adversarial relationships? There.
Go ahead, Hector. So no, sorry.
Your answer is probably going to be better than mine. Somebody that agrees with me 80% of the time is a friend, not an enemy. Focus in on the areas that you agree. Usually there's so much more that you're going to agree on. So it doesn't have to be adversarial. Now we live in a very polarized time right now. And it's like, are you on my team or the other team? And I really don't subscribe to that. I think that I want to say that we all want the same things. We may have a different approach to going towards it, but focus in on the parts that you agree on and agree to disagree on the things that you don't agree on, and don't talk about that.
And I'm completely in agreement with that. And also I would add that it's so important to learn other people's point of view. So just the fact that you're able to listen and just share your point of view without any, obviously fanatism. It's like we're just really talking and sharing, and we might not agree at the end of the day, and everybody's going to move on their own way. But it is really important because that's what really builds your point of view, and it's going to build what your position will be and how you're going to move forward. And you need to know all those positive, cons, different points of view. Everything that you could take is going to just strengthen what your goals are and how you're going to get there. So I would say that sometimes obviously you might have some relationships that you feel a little harder to create or maintain. because we're all humans, and so that happens. But I would say that everything is helpful, and at the end of the day, everything just adds to your path and helps you create the right idea to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's such a good question because it is so hard, especially when you're in a nonprofit or there are multiple chambers or associations and they're finite resources and their competition, right? So I think it's a great question. Like, how do you identify how to collaborate versus how to compete? Sometimes you can't. Sometimes there's situations that just exist that make it really difficult, and there's not a lot you can do about it. But I see a lot of the time where that does happen, where there's competition, where there really doesn't need to be. And that I think comes from a clarity around success and goals to what we've been talking about, and how could we complement one another, right? Like, so if my chamber of business group, and we are rock stars at events, like we put on the best events like you will ever see, but then I have another chamber and they have the best policy people right. How could then we take both those assets and put them together where success is aligned, whether that's monetary success, social capital success, or whatever it might be, community success, where we could collaborate and combine those two assets into some sort of collaborative win. Got to be really clear about what success looks like and where the money's going to go and what the funders are going to do. You have to have all those intentional conversations. But why should I have to compete on policy expertise when, my colleague in a chamber across the way has this rockstar policy wonk who can help my members understand how to navigate stuff, and they could become part of the events that we put on because we put on the best events, right? There are ways to think about the assets you have, how they fit together, and how that can align to success.
Great points. So I'm going to ask for a friend. So, sometimes companies, nonprofits run through tough patches, and we've seen examples different. Often it's self-inflicted, right? Things that happen in terms of leadership or practices, whatnot. And I think that's the time when it's really important to have friends and partners. So how do you build the social capital that gets you through yourself, your organization, or if you're a partner with an organization and you want to demonstrate or help them? I mean, how do you build that kind of capital that gets you through those tough times that we all experience at one point or another?
Ruben, in your nomenclature, it would be called making deposits.
Yeah.
You got to make a lot of deposits, what I call deposits in the goodwill bank. It's very easy when you're in the nonprofit space to reach out to another leader, another organization, a funder, and say, here's what I want, here's what I need. And, I think people pick up on this eventually, or sooner than later. It's like the only time this guy ever calls me is when he wants something, when he wants, a check, a sponsorship, a favor, whatever. And look, that's part of our role. That's part of our job. You don't get what you don't ask for. But not every conversation should be about what's in it for you. And so reaching out to folks, you'd be surprised how surprised they will be when you call them and you're not wanting anything. You're just checking in with them. It goes a long way. And you also don't know when you're going to need those relationships. I think Carolina mentioned this before. And that is, a lot of times companies, when they fall into trouble, they reach out and say, okay, you guys got to help me. We need a friend. And we say, well, that's going to be very difficult because you haven't been around. And when we asked you to work with us, you weren't interested. But we will try to help you, but you've got to make a long-term commitment. We're not into, we're going to do a transaction this month and never see you again. So that's just a couple of thoughts and ideas with regards to, developing those kinds of long-term relationships.
Thanks, Hector. Hey, so we're wrapping up. Everyone got a brief comment at the very end, but we'll have to wrap up very shortly. Carolina?
I was just gonna add that also it's important for you to learn when to ask for help. Sometimes people feel ashamed that they need help, that they made a mistake or something, and that's another point that I like to make. And sometimes I think there are people willing to help you if you really open up and say, hey, I'm in a bad place right now. This is not working as I thought it was gonna work. How could you help? Where should I go? Or how that could evolve. So that is also important. And I wanted just to make that.
Great, fantastic point. I'm sorry, all of a sudden we've run out of time. Carolina, Hector, Mark, thank you so much. for being with us this afternoon, and look forward to working with you in helping small businesses in California around the country. Thanks so much, and thanks to the California Hispanic Chambers.
Good
of
luck,
Commerce.
everybody. Much
Thank
success.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you as well. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.